I have a very interesting question to pose about Warframe, and it's why no one ever plays as Vauban. He's a very fun character from my experience. I've been playing him for the past week, been having a ton of fun with him. He has some pretty cool and unique abilities. However, when you play Warframe, you don't see anyone playing Vauban at all. You never see anyone playing him. Ever. Vauban Prime, normal Vauban. You never see anyone playing him. It's just a fact. Now, I know there's some of you guys out there that play him, and respect to you people that do, but I have not had the pleasure of playing with you anytime soon. Because I haven't seen someone play as him in maybe the past 2 to 3 weeks of playing Warframe. I haven't noticed anyone playing Vauban. It's insane to me. And it's even more insane when you add on the fact that he's extremely easy to get from the Nightwave. Of course, that's not the Prime Warframe. The Prime Warframe has been vaulted forever now. So, you might not see Vauban Prime because he has been vaulted for so long. But normal Vauban is extremely easy to get. Maybe even arguably one of the easiest frames to get in the entire game with Nightwave credits. And yet, you see no one play as him ever. And for certain frames that are particularly bad or particularly uninteresting, it might be a lack of people playing them to this extent. But when you look at Vauban, whatever, you see something else. You see a really cool, fun frame with fun and unique abilities. He might not be the best frame ever, but he certainly isn't a bad frame. Let's go over his abilities real quick and talk about it. He has the Tesla Nervos as his first ability. You can deploy electricity rollers that shock enemies in the area, and more importantly, deal status effects. This ability is never going to do a ton of damage, but it will cause status effects on enemies. He has the Mine Layer ability, which is very useful, because there's 4 different mines you can use, and you can use multiple of these mines at once. You get the Tether Coil that will hold enemies in a single spot. You have the Flechette Orbs that deal damage. They're, in my opinion, the worst one of the mines. You have Vector Pads that can send enemies backward, forward, or whatever you put it, or make you guys go faster or send other Warframes forward. Vector Pads are also kind of useless, if I'm being honest with you. And then the best one, in my opinion, is the Overdriver Mine that increases allied weapon damage by a minimum of 25% and can obviously be modded to do more. That's a really good ability right there. And that's just his 2. His 3 is Photon Strike. It drops a beacon that is a artillery strike. You can just call it in. The Photon Strike is kind of a shitty third. It's the only ability I will say that Vauban has that is bad. Vauban has that's bad. His final ability, by far the star of his arsenal, Bastille, creates a containment field that captures enemies, then suspends them in the air and strips them of their armor. You can also cast 2 different Bastilles at once to have 2 areas cut off with your Bastille. And on top of that, if you hold down your 4, which is, your 4th ability, if you hold down the ability button, it sucks all enemies and all items into the center of the Bastille and deals damage. This is an amazing ability that is great for crowd control. Vauban has insane abilities. They're all very good except the 3. The 1 is solid for a 1, the 2 is super good for a 2, and the 4 is just a straight up good ability. So I don't understand why people aren't playing him. It doesn't make sense. However, I do have some theories, and I'll get into them now. Warframe is a game where people kind of want to turn their brain off sometimes while killing enemies and just go through hordes of enemies and not think. That is not something you can do with Vauban. You cannot turn off your brain. You have to be actively thinking every time you do something. Every time you place a trap down, every time you place a mine. When I put this mine at this spot, is it going to intercept the enemies? When I put down my Bastille, is it going to be in the proper area to suck in resources and slow down the enemies and get them where I want? His abilities aren't just something you can spam while not thinking. Every time you use one of his abilities, you have to at least aim and place it in the right spot. You can't just press the same button over and over again and nuke the entire room like some frames can. So maybe that's one reason people don't play as him. You can't just use his abilities willy-nilly like you can a bunch of other frames. However, regardless of that, Vauban still has amazing crowd control. He has really good crowd control. And that is, I mean, literally half his abilities are meant for crowd control. The Tesla coils, the rollers, the mines, and of course the Bastille are all amazing crowd control options that can heavily slow down enemies. And also lower their armor or make your weapons more effective. If you want to lock down a spot in survival or on defense, I can't think of a frame whose abilities are more well suited for that scenario. He literally has it all. Buffs allies, damages enemies, traps enemies, and strips armor. That is an insane combo for one Warframe to have all of those options. But he still never gets used. And of course, Vauban's, 3 is utterly useless. I understand. His 3 is not good. It's just an artillery strike that really sucks. But still, considering everything else, he seems like a very usable character. A very useful character, in fact. Probably in the upper half of useful Warframes. So I don't know why he seemingly gets disrespected so much. Now, another reason someone might not use him is that he's a pretty squishy Warframe. You have to kind of be careful with what you're doing because you don't have much armor, you don't have much health, and you can absolutely die while using Vauban, pretty easily on higher level missions. I've had some issues with that where I've died a couple times doing some of the higher level missions, like when you get into like the 60s, 70s, or 100s even. He might not exactly be the most survivable Warframe. You do have to play it smart. Obviously, you can build him to have better shields and armor than I have personally. I'll show you my mods that I have on him right now. I don't even have an orc and a reactor in him. But he does die very quickly naturally. He's not exactly a squishy frame. I mean, he is a squishy frame. He's not exactly very solid. He's not rock solid like a Rhino or anything. So that could be another reason people don't want to use him. Because you have to combine, paying attention to where you place your abilities, being alert and focused on using your abilities, at least to a certain extent. And then, of course, you have to be alert and focused on making sure you don't get hit too much, because his health and shields and armor isn't up there when it comes to a lot of different Warframes. So I guess I can understand the issues with that. But at the same time, he has such a good mix of abilities, and then you throw in his passive that meshes well with his other abilities. You know what his passive is? He does 25% extra damage, Vauban does, to incapacitated enemies. So if you have an enemy trapped in Bastille, if you have an enemy trapped in a tether coil, and you are hitting them, that is an instant passive 25% increase in damage. Then imagine you have the 25% increase of damage that you have from laying down your mine, assuming it's only at 25%, because you can obviously make it a much higher percent with mods, and you have a plus 50% damage minimum for when you capture enemies and your 2 or 4 abilities. That's incredible. That's a really good bonus right there. You have basically, if you use his abilities correctly, always a 50% damage increase on enemies. That's just such a solid ability to have. And I don't think people are really shouting out Vauban enough, Ban, holy shit, I can't say his name for some reason. For some reason, guys, I need a different rant real quick, off the script completely here. I have so much trouble saying his name, because for so long I just called him Vauban, or Vauban. I called him Vauban for the longest time. I don't know why I called him Vauban. It's an A, not an O, in the second part of his name, so I have no clue why I called him Vauban. Then I look it up, and his name's actually Vauban, that you get from the Vauban Prime trailer. But then for some reason, I keep calling him Vauban in this video, when I've never called him Vauban before. Makes no sense. There's not an E at the end of the name, so I don't know why I call him Vauban when his name's Vauban. But that is irrelevant. I just want to go my rant right there. But I know I keep messing up his name, and my explanation and excuse for that is I don't know why. I don't know why Maybe that is why he's never used. Maybe everyone gets his name confused. People are like, oh, have you used Vauban before? People are like, who the hell is Vauban? Oh my bad, I meant Vauban. Who the hell is Vauban? And then right there, you've lost everybody. Right there, you've lost everybody. Everyone's like, who the hell is Vauban. His name is Vauban. His name is Vauban. I think. At this point, I'm not sure anymore. I don't remember what it was at this point. I'm honestly kind of confused. Anyway, while using Vauban, one of my favorite things to do that I think is fun, even though I said the fleshed out orb isn't that good, is I throw a tether coil next to a fleshed out orb, and combined, they can kill a lot of enemies, because you'll trap the enemies in the fleshed out orb, and I mean, you'll trap the enemies in the tether coil, and the fleshed out orb will slowly kill them while they're trapped in the tether coil. So if you want to cover your flank, that's a really good option. You can somewhat ignore your flank with that combination of mines, the flechette and the tether coil, and focus on, you know, a big room where you have your Bastille out. There's just so many different fun ways you can play around with Vauban here, and it's just absolutely amazing. So I was playing as him for the past week, like I said, on and off, just having a ton of fun using a Warframe whose abilities are super important and aren't just like, you know, Rhino's like, oh, every like a minute I click iron skin, iron skin, iron skin, or, you know, whatever, or Ember's like, oh, Ember armor, Ember armor, Ember armor. You know, it's an actual Warframe where the abilities require thought. And it's a really fun change up because recently I've just been using Warframes that I just click the ability and I don't have to think about it. Or like I use Ash's invisibility a lot, smoke screen. I just press Ash smoke screen, boom, and then for 30 seconds I don't worry about pressing it again, and then I press it again and that's all I think. But with Vauban, you have to actually think about your abilities, place them intelligently, and you can in real time see how they're helping you. And it's just something I really like, and it's really cool, and that's also probably why he's not played as much, because you do have to set things up. And when you're running through a mission, like you're running through Exterminate, or you're running through a, I don't know, Sabotage, or you're running through a Spy, or whatever you might be doing, he's not exactly going to be the most useful character, which is unfortunately true. So when you run through like a capture mission, you're not stopping and setting up mines. You're not stopping. Bless me, I'm sorry. You're not stopping and setting up Bastilles. You're running through the mission as quickly as possible and leaving. So I understand the lack of playing him in those missions, in Exterminates, in captures, maybe even in Spies. But when you get to missions like Defenses and Survivals in particular, Interceptions as well, any mission where you're kind of stuck at a stuck point, he seems to be one of the most useful frames you can possibly be. He seems to be incredibly useful in all honesty, but you never see people play him. Maybe people never play him because people don't really switch out frames for specific missions a lot. Obviously some players do, but a lot of people don't. And maybe, you know, people just don't, you know, want to use him regularly. So they just don't, because it's just not a frame you use for everything. He's a frame you do use for survival. He's a frame you do use for defense. He's a frame you do use for interception. But you're not going to be find a ton of use for him in extermination or capture. And so people are, you know, like, whatever. If I can't use him for this mission, I'm not going to use him for this mission. Maybe that's the thought process. I don't know. It's kind of like a theory crafting video right now where I'm trying to figure out why people don't play as him. Because when I played as him, he was extremely effective and a lot of fun throughout the past week. Especially in co-op, he can be very useful, and it keeps everyone gathered together in survival missions to do some major damage. But that is, I guess, my theories on people might not play him. But even after all of this, I'm still sat here thinking, that's not good enough reasons not to play as him. You know? Because he brings so many pluses, so many benefits. And then another last thing I have to add is Vauban Prime. He's extremely cool, extremely awesome. Let me know in the comments below when he's back in rotation because I want to get him. But he hasn't been in rotation for a while. He's a very rare frame to have. And there's a lot of players that don't play unless they're playing as a Prime. There's a lot of players that'll be like, oh, I have Vauban, and he might be the better pick for this mission, but because I have, you know, blank primed or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and use this frame because prime frames are usually a little bit better, have more mod slots, better polarities. So I'm going to use a prime frame instead of using Vauban because I don't have Vauban Prime, and it seems that no one actually has Vauban Prime that I can tell that I've ever played with. So maybe that's why, because people don't want to use a normal frame. We have all these prime frames that are more impressive, I guess to say, or more powerful. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this video. I just want to talk about Vauban and just give my thoughts on him. And I've been having a ton of fun playing him. I want to give a shout out to all my Vauban mains out there. Keep the world moving. You know, hopefully you match in a game with me at some point, so I can have actual proof that someone plays as him besides me for the past week. But yeah, stay blessed, guys. Stay happy. Let me know when Vauban Primes comes back, because his Prime looks absolutely awesome. And fun trivia fact, he was actually the second Prime Warframe to ever receive a Prime trailer. So that's pretty cool. Prime story trailer on the YouTube channel, Warframe Play YouTube channel. That's pretty neat, right? Anyway, okay, that's all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Play Vauban if you haven't. He's a fun character. Very hands-on, but it's worth it. It's a good time. Get on a survival mission with him. You'll have lots of fun. But peace out. Stay blessed. I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.